You said I was going to go for 1 week and I was going to meditate every day and I was going to feel better. I didn't say you were going to feel better in the sense like happy. I said you will feel. Everything is being questioned today. What I do think that wellness is, there may be this tendency of wanting to deny the dark side.
What is mindfulness, Khadija?
A healer, her client says.
She transformed my perspective on life.
Meet Khadija Bennani, a pioneering mindfulness instructor, conscious parenting and reparenting coach.
Her mentors and trainers include globally acclaimed clinical psychologists and mindfulness educators.
She is our first guest in the Wellbeing podcast of the College of Social Sciences at the International University of Rabat.
We have a default mode network that is everything but mindful.
Being in the present moment does require some training because we are not biologically wired to be here. And it's not about stopping our minds from thinking because that's mission impossible. And all the freedom we find through mindfulness is to understand we are not our thoughts. We are actually something way more subtle, way bigger. There is an informal practice, which is being able to, today scientifically, it has been proven how mindfulness contributes to stress reduction. And you can spend your whole life with pain because you're not going to the root. Mindfulness helps you go to the root. And yeah, reality caught up real quick. Of course, there's going to be resistance because it's painful to feel your feelings. Have you ever tried not getting rid of the fear? That was a game changer for her. In the microcosm of our own inner world, we can be Moroccan about our emotions. Manifests physically, like a tension in my chest. Mindfulness helps to bring you from the what if to the what is.
What is the story with childhood traumas, and finally, how can we reparent ourselves? So Khadija, welcome to the first episode of the Wellbeing Podcast.
Thank you so much, Zainab. It's an honor to be here.
So to get started, would love to hear more about your journey. A few years ago, we never heard of mindfulness teachers and conscious parenting coaches. So would you like to share with us your journey and how did you land here?
All right. Well, I was born and raised in Casablanca. And I had a very privileged opportunity to study a little bit in the US, in Europe, and in Morocco. So I kind of curated my journey with the field of wellness. And I started with human development. Then I went a little bit deeper in early childhood education. And then I dived deep in traditional Chinese medicine, as well as mindfulness and meditation. And the thread that really followed the whole journey for me was the fascination that I had of the relationship between parents and their children. Very early on, I was extremely curious about how an adult became what he or she became and how their childhood impacted that. So when I moved back to Morocco, I worked in a school for a couple of years, in a preschool. And little did I know that the children were going to teach me a lot more than I was going to teach them. And these little wise people truly, truly showed me what it was to be in the present moment and the capacity to really just simply be here and now. And how being here allowed us to embrace those essential qualities like spontaneity, like curiosity, like joy. And so I understood from meeting their parents every day at the end of the school day, for example, that as we grow up, we lose these qualities. But these are not qualities that we necessarily need to develop, and when we grow up through trainings and wellness, personal development books and all of that, these were things we were born with, and that with life's circumstances we kind of forgot, you know. So as I worked in this preschool, I was called to support parents. It felt like an evidence for me that that's where I was meant to be. So I continued my studies in conscious parenting, and the work of Dr. Shefali highly impacted my approach. As you mentioned, I was really, really blessed to have her as a mentor. And what resonated for me in her approach was something that I deeply was looking for in my own personal journey, which was an intersection of psychology and spirituality. For me, one alone couldn't feel complete. I knew that, for example, becoming a parent was a journey that had to be transformative, that had to break us open. And I did experience that when I became a mother myself. It was not only an experience that changed me physically, but also emotionally and spiritually. So my journey continued when I became a mother in this quest of who am I? That's where I, like I said, dived deep into Chinese medicine because I was fascinated by this approach that was based in ancient wisdom and the observation of nature, and that still stands today in the test of time, which is a combination really of science and spirituality, and that bridges physical well-being with emotional well-being. So basically, my path has been always designed by mindfulness. Every approach that I trained in had this as a backbone. Self-awareness is really the pillar of my approach as I today work with parents. So yeah, fast forward to maybe 20 years since I've embarked on this journey. I've been working with parents for, almost 2 decades now. Oh. And it's always really been about developing self-awareness and including this spiritual opportunity of growth. So I do this in one-on-ones in my private practice as well as with group workshops and all kinds of different ways now.
Okay, so your work has always revolved around well-being somehow in the family dynamic, in the parent-child relationship. You work with schools, organizations, individuals.
Yes.
Let's say I am a second-year university student.
Yeah.
I'm grappling with anxiety, insomnia, just stuff. How would you define well-being to me?
First, I want to say to you, if you were as a college student, that today I have so much respect and admiration for you because I do believe that being a young college kid today is not easy. I've been there, and it was not easy back then, but I feel like in a very, very short time, we've entered like a new era of uncertainty where before, perhaps, being a school kid who got her high school diploma was pretty clear. The trajectory was pretty classical. You finish high school, you go to university, then you get a job, and then maybe you get married, and then you have kids, and then, it was like check, check, check. But I feel like everything is up in the air today. Everything is being questioned today. There's so much uncertainty. And I completely understand the anxiety and insomnia that you would have if you were a college student today. And so if I had to define what wellness meant, I could start with what I believe it is not. I believe wellness is not a tool or a strategy or something, some discipline, some trend that is supposed to fix you, and fix your anxiety. It is not something that's supposed to be linked to only, being positive and cheerful and strong and, happy and zen all the time. Because, you can't. We are in a time in the history of humanity where things are tough and we're being challenged in every single way. I believe that sometimes anxiety is a completely understandable response. What I do think that wellness is not so much just the absence of illness, if we could say anxiety or insomnia or whatever illness, quotes unquote, it is. It is also the presence of so many things. It is the presence, our presence, first of all, the presence of our awareness, the presence of our thirst for knowledge, for who am I, for inner awareness, different parts of me, my inner child, my inner critic, my adult self, my traumas, my childhood, and being aware of all of that and having compassion for all of that. Because I feel that today, in the world of the wellness industry, we can fall into this trap of wanting to associate wellness with just being great and feeling great, but there may be this tendency of wanting to deny the dark side. And because of my studies in Chinese medicine, what I do know, and we all know this symbol of the yin and the yang, is that the world inevitably is made of light and dark, day and night, winter and summer. And mindfulness really allows us to welcome the all, the totality of our experience. So for me, wellness is not so much the absence of illness, but it's the capacity to withhold and welcome all of our experience.
Oh, that's amazing. So wellness for you is not being happy all the time.
No.
The smiley face
No.
myth.
No.
So we're deconstructing this.
We're deconstructing
right now.
that myth, please.
Very important for
Yes.
students. And just yesterday, actually, we started, as part of the well-being program here, we started a course, optional for all students to enroll in, to sign up, called the Mindful Well-being course. And we were having a conversation yesterday with some of the students, and there was this idea of, I have to show that I'm strong. I have to be strong. This is also what well-being entails. I cannot show
Yeah.
my vulnerability to other people.
Yeah, that is so hard. Oof, so much pressure, because it is true that today, more than ever before, we have access to so much information about well-being, and we feel like we don't have any excuse. Like maybe before, even our parents were like, well, we didn't know all this stuff, so you guys are all woke because you have all the tools and the books and all the social media platforms and access to all of this. So everybody knows all the Rumi quotes, and everybody knows everything, about ego and inner child and trauma. But that doesn't mean you're not allowed to have, your own human experience. And I think we need to put off this pressure on this new generation. Please feel allowed to have your human experience.
Yeah, I think many people would just exhale hearing this. Just take a breath, like it's okay.
Yeah, of course it's okay. The good news is that, yes, we do have tools. Honestly, they're not new tools. They're 1,000-year-old tools. And it's based on ancient wisdom. And really, if it stood the test of time, then we should probably give it a chance. The only thing is that we need to adapt it to modern society. We're not going to exclude ourselves from our modern lives and maybe our urban settings or whatever environment you're living in, and go exclude yourself in the mountains. I mean, it's great if you can, and if that's what you choose, amazing. But if not, how do we bring mindfulness and wellness here in this life, in this stressful time? As a college student who has, like you said, anxiety or insomnia, how do I bring this in my reality? And this is where there's so many options.
Before diving into the how, the tools and the protocols, as I'd like to call them, let's first deconstruct and understand the what. So you mentioned a lot of interesting and fascinating keywords that, for sure, many students hear on social media: mindfulness, ego, what else? The inner child. But let's have an alignment of what these key terms mean. And let's start with perhaps mindfulness. What is mindfulness, Khadija?
You know, there's so many definitions, and I do invite people to look up some classical definitions. For example, the one of John Kabat-Zinn, which is along the lines of, it is the capacity to be here and now, to be able to observe the present moment without any judgment. Or you can consider my child's definition, which is to sit and watch your nails grow.
To sit and watch your nails grow.
Yeah. I do want to deconstruct this idea that, you know, people think it's all about, you know, sitting for an hour a day and not thinking and keeping your mind empty and calm all the time. That's not what mindfulness is. Mindfulness is really the capacity of being here, being aware of your present thoughts, being aware of your present emotions, being able to feel your emotions, because let's talk about how disconnected we are to our emotions, disconnected we are to our physicality. And so mindfulness really does that. It brings you to your body. It brings you to your feelings. And the little joke is that one of my teachers was telling us how in her private practice, she was with someone who she advised to go for a retreat. And she said, go for a week of meditation and you'll feel better. So he goes, he comes back after a week and he's so angry. He's like, you said I was going to go for 1 week and I was going to meditate every day and I was going to feel better. I don't. I'm so angry. All my traumas came up. I'm feeling so many feelings. I never thought I would feel this. And I'm exhausted physically and emotionally and this and that. And she said, well, I didn't say you were going to feel better in the sense like happy. I said you will feel better, which means feeling. You will have the capacity to feel.
First of all, to get started, just get it in touch.
Yeah, welcome to your human experience. And this is what mindfulness is about. We're so scared to feel our feelings, and mindfulness does bring that. The good news is that when you're able to feel your feelings, then you don't have to have all these unconscious coping mechanisms that can be disease, that can be numbing, that can be disconnection, that can be unhealthy and toxic relationships. So mindfulness really is the capacity to be here, not only in self-awareness, but also in self-compassion.
Okay. It just reminded me of a scientific article published by Harvard psychologists. Most of the research has been done in English-speaking countries, though they do include different cultures. And it's called A Wandering Mind is an Unhappy Mind. And I'm just going to read a few lines from the article and would love your thoughts. Unlike other animals, human beings spend a lot of time thinking about what is not, going on around them, contemplating events that happened in the past, might happen in the future, or will never happen at all. Indeed, mind wandering appears to be the brain's default mode of operation. So it seems like we have a default mode network that is everything but mindful.
Well, it's true. I call that time traveling. Basically, we are always traveling either in the past, regretting and feeling sad and depressed for things that have happened in the past, or we are in the future, basically fearing and feeling anxious for things that haven't even happened yet. So we are basically in either in the past or in the future. Now, being in the present moment does require some training because we are not biologically wired to be here. Why? Because there's such a thing as the negativity bias, which is part of our survival mechanisms that are this part of us that will make us vigilant and even hyper-vigilant to focus only on everything that's wrong so that we become aware because our minds have not evolved as fast as this fast-paced world we're in. So basically our brains are still functioning as if we were in a jungle. And you know what? I'm not going to be here appreciating the beautiful trees and the flowers and enjoying the sound of the water. No, I need to look out and make sure there's no wild animal that's going to jump and attack me, you know? So we're still functioning like that. And we're still exhausting our adrenals, to speak as physically and concretely as possible, as if we have to be in this hypervigilant state all the time. What we need to do is train our brains through mindfulness that we are safe. And yes, sometimes we're not. So there is a time where it is absolutely appropriate to be vigilant. Let's make that clear, because in wellness, we're always talking about being calm. And no, sometimes it's absolutely justified not to be calm. But let that not be 100% of your life, you know? Yeah. That's where I think the imbalance is that we function like that most of the time, 80% of the time, where it should be 20 or less, you know?
So most of the time, we're in survival.
Yeah. Yes.
And this is probably clearly correlated to the rising rates of depression and anxiety and chronic stress.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think we are living in a fast-paced world where change is going at such a pace that it makes us all super dizzy. And, you know, mindfulness is it's a practice, but it's also a mindset that allows you to come back to the now. Because the way life is moving so fast, there's so much uncertainty as to how life will be even in 1 year, not even like 5 or 10 years. So we don't know anymore like we used to, this illusion of certainty that we had, which we never really had. It was always an illusion. And I think since the pandemic, the recent pandemic, we've pretty much established that nothing is certain. It's such an illusion to think that we're in control, really. But now it's very obvious. And it's very scary. So it is a natural response to be hypervigilant, but we need to train ourselves to be in the here, in the now.
Okay. So mindfulness is a state of engagement with the present moment's experience.
Yeah.
Whether it's a positive, pleasant, comfortable experience,
Yeah.
or unpleasant and comfortable, being able to sit with both.
Yes.
You talked about it being an ancient practice.
Yeah.
Science is catching up today. So it would be also interesting to dive into some of the tradition and the science and the how. How do we practice? How do we invite it into our busy lives?
Yeah.
Not only talking about students who are they have really busy schedules today, professors, educators, parents, like the entire ecosystem. How do we invite that?
Yeah, yeah. There is a formal practice, which I think is the most known, which is the capacity to sit regularly every day, perhaps. Maybe crossing your legs, sitting on the floor, closing your eyes, and breathing. And this is one kind of meditation. Let's be clear, there are several different kinds of meditation, but mindfulness is not about visualizing that you're in a beautiful island somewhere far away from your reality. This is not what mindfulness is about. Sometimes that is helpful, but this is not what is offered in mindfulness. Mindfulness is about really training yourself, training your mind to be here and now. So in the formal practice, we sit and we learn how to be here. And one of the main portals of how to be here is through breath awareness. So training ourselves to just pay attention to the inhale and the exhale, training ourselves to notice our thoughts. And it's not about stopping our minds from thinking, because that's mission impossible. It's really about noticing the thoughts, because the biggest, how can I say, source of suffering, actually, is that we believe we are our thoughts. And so we live our lives attached to these thoughts, believing our thoughts. And all the freedom we find through mindfulness is to understand we are not our thoughts. We are actually something way more subtle, way bigger, which is the observer of the thoughts. And that's where we can go a bit deeper in the spiritual path of who am I? But there's the freedom, being able to observe the thoughts, understanding they are part of our experience, but that doesn't mean I have to go hop on that train of thought and go far away with it. I stay here. Mm-hmm. There's the observation of thoughts and breath and emotions and physical sensations, and it's really about being here. Then there is the informal practice, because maybe as a university student or as a professor, you in this modern life where it's super fast-paced and there's a million things to do on the to-do list and lots of stress and everything. Some people are like, are you kidding me? How can I sit for 20 minutes a day? If I can sleep that extra 20 minutes, I'll take it, and go for it. Take it, That's what I tell, people that I work with individually as well, including parents, young parents who are usually lacking sleep, who are told, just wake up a little bit earlier. Just wake up at 5, do that extra, morning time before the kids wake up. No, I need my sleep. Amazing if you can wake up early and do all that. But for a lot of people, it's hard. So there is an informal practice, which is being able to be here in my mundane activities. While I'm driving, I am here. I can be driving on the way to school and be with my breath. I can be in the middle of traffic and notice that it's triggering me, but taking a moment to pause and being in with my breath, being with my thoughts, being with my emotions, and allowing that space between the trigger and my response. And this is where I find my freedom, because I am mindful that, guess what? I am also part of the traffic. The traffic is not just happening to me, I am part of it. So in this informal mindfulness practice, we have an opportunity to really be here in everything we do. We don't necessarily need to stop our day and reserve 30, 40 minutes, 60 minutes a day. It can be, like I said, while we're driving. It can be while we're doing the dishes. It can be any really time we are engaging in life. And as we do that, we are also honoring and respecting whatever we are doing or whoever we are engaging with.
Okay. So you mentioned two things. We were talking about mindfulness, and then you mentioned meditation. What's the difference between the two?
I would say meditation is this traditional practice of sitting in a formal way. And there are so many different styles of meditation. Like I said, mindfulness is really a tradition of insight, where it's really about being with yourself and your present experience without judging it. But it's not accompanied with any music or imagination of being elsewhere than just here.
Okay. So meditation is always a mindful practice. But mindfulness is not necessarily a meditation practice.
Yeah, you can say it like that, I guess. Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So for busy people, mindfulness would be to break the autopilot mode.
Yeah.
And bring awareness to the present moment, whatever that is.
It could be while you're walking. And while you're walking, just to be with that moment. While I'm walking, I know I'm walking. I can be aware of my breath. While I'm teaching, I can be with my class and be with my breath. While I'm studying, I can be studying and be with my body,
And how does it help? Could you share with us perhaps some of the science behind it? What's the mechanisms? Why bringing our attention to the present moment experience helps in feeling and functioning better long term?
Yeah. Scientifically, it has been proven now. I mean, I think there was a lot of skepticism just not even too long ago, but today, scientifically, it has been proven how mindfulness contributes to stress reduction on hormonal level. It improves sleep. It lowers blood pressure. And of course, one of the things that I think deserves to be a lot well known is that it helps with pain management. In a time where we are so used to looking for external sources of comfort when we are in pain, whether it's physical or emotional pain, actually, we'll go grab that pill just to stop feeling our feelings or stop that pain or that headache. What that does is it's a temporary Band-Aid, right? But it doesn't really fix things at the root, nor does it help you develop the strength you need to identify why that pain came in the first place. So it can keep coming. And you can spend your whole life with pain because you're not going to the root. Mindfulness helps you go to the root. Mindfulness helps you be present in awareness to feel your feelings. So yeah, you're going to feel pain. You're going to feel discomfort. But that's good, because if you spend your life numbing your pain, you're going to have pain all your life because you're not doing anything to address it, right?
Okay. Sitting with discomfort.
Yeah.
Necessary ingredients for growth,
Yes.
healing. Yes.
Yes. And I do believe in the most concrete of manners that in the way the world is evolving today, we better get used to discomfort and being able to sit with that, because in the last maybe decades or the last century, we have been extremely attached to our comfort, really the way, we have heaters now. So when it's too cold, we can just press a button and then, the temperature's just right. Yeah. There's so many ways where comfort has become, oh my goodness, how can we could mention how today, if you just have a little craving, oh my God, I have a sweet tooth and I want a little cookie right now. I just bring out my phone, press a few buttons, and 15 minutes later, my chocolate chip cookie is right there. Yeah. So we are so served to react to our impulses and to want to get comfort. And this is really about training ourselves to not just react to our impulses and be super attached to our comfort, but to be able to detach from these things, because life won't always allow it.
There is a lot of resistance to the word meditation. When I talk to my students, for instance, there is this misconception. Yeah. There's this meditation. It's just a lot of resistance there.
Yeah.
I'm wondering with people you work with, whether parents, schools, kids, teenagers, how do you manage to face the resistance and just push them a little bit gently with compassion, but overcome this initial resistance?
Yeah. I have compassion for them, because I myself have resistance. Believe it or not, as a mindfulness teacher, I have no shame in saying that it was extremely hard for me when I signed up to become a teacher. I thought that at the end of this training that I would be a monk myself.
Super zen.
And reality caught up real quick. And what I learned very quickly was that to encourage the practice of mindfulness, it's really about having compassion for where people are at. And of course, there's going to be resistance because it's painful to feel your feelings, because people struggle with time management. They don't see themselves adding one more thing to the list. That's what it feels like, one more thing in the to-do list. Sometimes there's skepticism. Sometimes there's this misrepresentation that, it's woo-woo. And there's nothing woo-woo about meditation. It's not contrary to maybe some other approaches, really, that may take us to spiritual bypassing. This is not about contouring, I don't know how to say it, reality, bypassing reality. It's about giving you the strength to live your life. It's really for people who are in a love of truth. And so if there's resistance because of lack of time, because there's a fear of feelings that have been so well kept, maybe for years, maybe since childhood, then all I can do is have compassion and allow perhaps little pieces, little doors that can open to this world, which can be, for example, for busy people, just micro meditations. I know ideally, we would all meditate for maybe an hour a day, but that's our fantasy. But that's not our reality. So instead of giving up on the whole thing, just allowing ourselves to commit to the love of truth by having these moments where we pause, multiple moments a day, where we pause and just check in with ourselves. Come back to now, catch myself. Oh, I'm in the future now. I'm in the fear of something that hasn't happened yet. Oh, look at me. I'm in the past of something I can't change anymore. Coming back. And how do I come back? Through my breath. So just micro moments like this, learning the principles of mindfulness and applying them in our busy lives. And there may be times where we can permit for longer periods to sit. It can be a retreat. It can be a break. It can be during a holiday. It can be during a road trip. It can be, but it's okay to start where you're at and what's possible for you now.
Okay. So it could be really tiny micro actions.
Yeah.
1 minute of mindful check-in.
Yeah.
Checking in like a body scan.
Yeah.
My thoughts.
Yeah.
And connecting with the observer.
Absolutely. It's also, we do eat a couple times a day. It can be your lunchtime, for example, where you take a moment to feel the taste of what's, on your plate, to appreciate perhaps the journey that this vegetable or whatever you have on your plate took, and honor the fact that there are so many people that contributed to that carrot being on your plate, whether it's the farmer, the truck driver, the guy in the market, and everyone who participated to this moment.
Okay, so Khadija, you've been working in the mindfulness field for over 2 decades. And I'm sure that it has been a process, a non-linear process for you and for people you work with. Would love to hear stories about the people you work with, how it started, implementing and inviting more mindfulness, the entire process.
Well, you mentioned earlier the example of a typical university student who struggles with anxiety, for example. So I'm thinking of someone right now that came to me with this issue, and I'm using her as an example because it's not necessarily a parent. This is someone who did not have children, who came to me struggling with these issues of anxiety, and it was becoming really a problem for her. She couldn't function truly when she had projects. She couldn't focus. It really impacted her capacity to concentrate. It impacted her executive function skills and to be able to follow through, because her fear just caught up and it disturbed her, and it started becoming even a physical issue. So she started having symptoms of which were very physical. She had some medical issues. So when she came to me, she came with all of that and saying, "Listen, I read all the books. I know that you're supposed to practice this and do that and all, and I just can't get rid of that fear. It's there. It's always there." And I said, "Well, have you ever tried not getting rid of the fear?" And that was a game changer for her. Because I think that's where we kind of get lost in the wellness field, where we think that fear is a problem, as an enemy. And the beauty of mindfulness is that it's very inclusive. So in the microcosm of our own inner world, to include all of our experience and not try to push it away, kick it out. It's here. So let's accept that it's here. Does it mean we be passive about it and there's nothing to do? Absolutely not. Once we accept it, the paradox, and this is why I love the intersection of psychology and spirituality, is because there is some Eastern wisdom where paradox and contradiction is okay. We don't have to be in the duality of, whether things are okay or not okay. It can be both. Once I accept that fear is part of my experience, once I welcome it, and I also joke with some of the people that I coach, whether in private sessions or in workshops, that we can be Moroccan about our emotions. Welcoming.
مرحبا.
مرحبا. There is a beautiful poem by Rumi called The Guest House, and I do invite all our listeners to check it out. But the idea is really to be Moroccan about our emotions and welcome them. Quite the contrary of everything we've been trained to do. Stop feeling your feelings. Don't cry. Don't be afraid. What happens when we welcome it? The contradiction and the paradox is that once we enter this possibility to welcome it, we hear it. And when we hear it, we hear the intention behind. It's only here to protect us. And it has been designed with this positive intention, let's say. The only thing is, like we said earlier, we are not our thoughts. If we have thoughts of fear and we're believing those fears, what happens when we practice mindfulness is that we shift from believing the fear to knowing. We go from believing to knowing. I can see my fear, but I can know that it is only one part of me that feels this way and that it manifests physically, like a tension in my chest, like my heart beating fast, like my mind going to what if. But mindfulness helps to bring you from the what if to the what is. And you decide. It's like imagining that the fear is with you in the car. And up until now, this person that I'm thinking of, fear was driving. And she was in the back. And fear was deciding where we're going. Fear was deciding what we're listening to. Fear was deciding the speed. Fear was deciding everything. Mindfulness does not get rid of the fear. Mindfulness says, fear, you are welcome to stay. You are on this trip with me. But now you sit in the back. I drive. I decide what we're listening to. And what we're listening to is Dr. Zineb's podcast. That's what we're listening to. We decide the volume. We decide the direction. Okay? So you're welcome. And thank you for being here. Okay? But we are safe. I'm telling you. And this is the process. It's what we refer to as reparenting. It's really about getting in touch with that part of us that is afraid, which is obviously intimately linked with our inner child and some unmet needs there. And when we get in touch with that, we also activate the adult self, the parent within us. And I always say, when I do my conscious parenting workshops, it's really not about your children. It's about your inner children, your inner child, and reparenting your inner child. Once you focus on that, you naturally embody all the qualities that are required for your child. So stop focusing on trying to educate and raise your kids well so that they eat broccoli and go to sleep and do their homework and have good grades. Just reparent yourself. And that is the best thing you can do. So back to this example of this woman who was struggling with anxiety, who did not have children. Mindfulness has really changed the paradigm for her, where she stopped fighting the fear and she welcomed it and even normalized it. It's absolutely normal to feel fear sometimes. It's welcome. But she now had the tools to be creative when the fear came up. So naturally, the fear was not taking control over her situation. She was the one who chose. That's where her freedom was.
Okay, so when the fear was coming up, what was she doing?
Well, through our work together, she was trained to recognize the fear, you know. So, hello, fear. I see you. Because we're trained with mindfulness to recognize the feeling, whether it's physical. Sometimes you can tell it's coming through a fast-paced heartbeat, you know, or it can come through tightness in the chest, or it can come through shaking, or it can come through a phrase that keeps coming, like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, you know. So you just learn to catch it and anticipate it and accept it. And then you inquire, okay, what is this about? Why did it show up? Where is this coming from? You know, and listening to the need. There's an unmet need. So what is the need? How can I meet that need? And we're not talking about meeting it through impossible magical solutions. It's just about self-compassion. Sometimes you can't find a solution, but you can put a hand on the heart and say, it's okay. You can say, I forgive myself. You can say, I did my best and that's enough.
That's amazing. I love the idea of reconnecting with our Moroccan traditions and the notion of marhaba, welcome, when it comes to our emotions, and especially the uncomfortable emotions. You just reminded me of the work of Dr. Susan David. She is a researcher in psychology from South Africa, and she published this book called Emotional Agility. And in this book, she talks about exactly what you're saying, this idea of, first of all, labeling. She calls it emotional labeling. Give it a name. The moment you give it a name, you kind of engage a different area of your brain responsible of thinking and regulation, and it just naming it helps. Emotional acceptance, emotional expression. And I love this notion of reparenting. What is the story with childhood traumas, and finally, how can we reparent ourselves?
Well, I do believe that what happens in the first years of our lives is extremely important and impactful on the rest of our life, for sure. Does that mean that we are condemned to be who we are because of what happened? No. We are only condemned if we stay unconscious and unaware and severed from feeling what we need to feel and integrating this part of our lives, you know? So being invited to reparent ourselves, it just means accepting the past. There's also a big work of forgiveness. I love Annie Lamott's definition of forgiveness. She says, forgiveness is abandoning the hope of a better past.
It's beautiful.
So doing this work and releasing yourself and releasing this attachment to this better past to finally be here. Okay, I'm here, I am now. So I can allow myself to operate and function from my adult self, because when I don't do that, you bet it impacts my relationships and I'm being triggered because I don't feel seen. I can be a full-grown adult, but when I enter a room where I say something and someone didn't hear me, I'm triggered because when I was a kid, maybe I didn't feel heard or didn't feel seen, so I'll overcompensate. So these are just opportunities to integrate your childhood and release everyone else that we unconsciously hire to heal our wounds, whether it's a partner or a colleague, and take that responsibility for ourselves. And this is what allows these healthy relationships, not only with others, but with ourselves. So I'll tell you a little story if you want, just to illustrate my message. You know, for whether you're a parent or not, I think we have all seen this typical scene of a child in the supermarket who wants candy and who throws themselves. And those who followed me for a few years know this story. I love telling it. So the mother is with her daughter in the supermarket, and the little girl is throwing herself on the floor. I want candy! I want candy! And the mother says, breathe, Sophia, breathe. We have agreed on this, and we said no candy. I want candy! I want candy! Sophia, we're almost done. We're going to pay now, and we're going to go home. Just breathe. It's okay. We said that we were not going to buy candy. We're going to go home now. Just breathe. Just breathe. It's okay. It's okay. So the little girl ends up calming down, and they're heading home. But before that, they are loading the car with their groceries, and this man comes to the mom and says, excuse me, I just wanted to say, I was observing the whole scene, and I noticed how calm you stayed, and everybody was looking at you, and your daughter was crying and all. So then he looks at the little girl and he say, Sophia, you're very lucky to have a mom like this. And the mom looks at him and says, well, thank you, but I'm Sophia.
That's such an amazing story. So she was actually talking to herself, regulating herself.
Yes.
Which is basically the only thing we have control over.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's the idea. It's that whether it's your child, whether it's your friend, whether it's your colleague, whether it's whoever you're in relationship with, they are only here to mirror something in you that you need to, perhaps work on. It's always an opportunity of growth. The invitation here is to have self-awareness and self-compassion. And the more you work on regulating your own self, then this is going to impact you not only energetically. When I say energetically, it's as real as it gets, because we have mirror neurons, and we do attract people based on our inner state. So just take care of yourself, have a lot of self-compassion, and trust yourself. Be aware.
Self-compassion and curiosity.
Yes.
I think two key takeaways from today's conversation.
Yes. This genuine quest of who am I? What is going on inside of me? It's a very beautiful and essential quality that we are born with, and we can see this in children. They are so curious and fascinated. And let's treat ourselves like that.
That's amazing. Treat ourselves like someone we have to take care of.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Khadija. We do have a tradition in this new podcast. So you're going to be the first one. So connection. I know you say this a lot. Connection is one of our core basic human needs. So here we have a few cards. It's all about connection. And you can just randomly pick one and answer this last question.
All right. Okay. It says, how can you become a better person?
Okay.
The first thing that comes to me is to say, by accepting who you are now.
Thank you so much, Khadija. Thank you for accepting our invitation. Thank you for being the first guest to kick off this podcast.
My honor.
Really grateful to have such a generous, kind, brilliant mind and soul with us today. Before we wrap up, would love to share with the audience, our listeners, where can they connect with you? Where can they find you?
I occasionally appear on my Instagram page called Le Parent Conscient. So welcome if you want to join. I try my best to contribute through some content, some lives, sometimes talking about stuff over there and announcing my workshops and whatever events. So welcome.
Perfect. Le Parent Conscient.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Khadija. Thank you all so much, and I'll see you next month.